Information-fueled.
Opinion-driven.
This is Nashville's Morning News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
we talk news.
6:07, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 89.7 WTN. Good morning to your friends. How are you? It is April 1st. So if you walk into the kitchen of your place of employment and you see what you think is a box of donuts and it's actually vegetables, well, you'll know why. Because it is April Fool's Day.
That would be really mean.
That's fighting words.
Yeah.
Them's are fighting words. Anyway, we got a lot going on. Super text line is open. 615-737-9986. 615-737-WWTN. Again, we have a lot of news to talk about. One of the things that I like, and I'm going to weave a whole bunch of headlines into this one conversation, and that is the state of the Democrat Party. Now, you've got Gavin Newsom, governor for the state of California, and he said this about the Democrats.
The Democratic brand is toxic right now.
All right, so new polling shows that Democrats are, again, at a low point. This is just this morning. A new Harvard CAPS poll shows that 37% of voters said they approve, only 37% approve of their party. Now, this follows the dismal polling from CNN and other places as well. No big surprises. And Gavin Newsom, he has been wrong on so many issues, so many times, but you know what? He is right on this.
The Democratic brand is toxic right now.
So when you talk about why, let's just look at the headlines. The attack on Tesla dealerships, siding with illegal alien gangbangers, lying to the American people about Joe Biden, Jasmine Crockett, and her constant racism. It does go on and on. And for the Democrats, I mean, the headlines every day provide fuel and fodder for people to dislike the Democrat Party.
The Democratic brand is toxic right now.
Now, Bill Maher had Gavin Newsom on his show the other day. And as Newsom is out there, and this is, I think, points to the desperation of the Democrat Party. Newsom is out there trying to paint himself as a moderate. By the way, very much like Kamala Harris did. Remember when Harris, she announced that she was running, and George Stephanopoulos described her as one of the more moderate senators that were in the Senate. And everybody was like, boy, that is a lie. She is actually the most liberal. Well, now you've got Gavin Newsom trying to portray himself as this moderate. And so I love what Maher did. He challenged him on the bureaucratic nightmare that he helped create in California.
But let's talk about what's important. My roof.
Your roof.
My roof.
Is this the solar? Is this we're back to the solar?
After the fire.
It's always about the solar.
After the fire,
yes, Bill.
New roof, they suggested, get the stuff that's not, okay. 2 inspections I needed to have. Why? It's my roof. If it falls on my head, that's my problem.
So if you're unfamiliar with the story, they had a fire. And so Maher, who has a place in California, was trying to replace his roof. And California, with their hundreds of thousands of regulations, he had to pay out of pocket for these inspections, and he was really angry.
Why do I need 2 inspections, which I have to pay for?
Yeah.
When you were here last time, we talked about regulations. You said, it's a completely new day.
Well, no, wait.
It's a quote from you. Completely new day.
Well,
You said you were working on it.
By the way, and last week you had Ezra Klein on, which was incredibly important. He wrote a book called Abundance, which really lays out a very condemning picture of liberal governance in this country and the fact that we are process-focused and not outcome-focused. And your demonstrable example of that is relates to what you've tried to do with your damn roof for the last 15 years. Right. And so it's our job to eliminate as many of those thickets.
How's that going, though?
As possible.
It's not going. That's the point. I mean, basically what is happening with Gavin Newsom is he's trying to distance himself from the dysfunction of the Democrat Party, even though dude is neck deep in that dysfunction, he's trying to separate it and trying to make it look like he's on the outside. When in reality, he's one of the ones that poured gasoline and lit the party on fire with all of this insanity. And so he's basically criticizing his own actions for the past, 10 years or whatever it is that he's been the governor of the state of California. And so the crazy thing about all of this is Gavin Newsom, he's going on about these things, and he talks about how California has done well, he says, under emergency situations, but the day-to-day regulations are strangling the state. And Bill Maher is right to be angry. But, this is such a tone-deaf response from Gavin Newsom.
I couldn't agree more with Ezra. It's an indictment of liberal governance and leadership. And he attacks California rightfully in many categories and respects, the high-speed rail, as it relates to housing production, and we own that.
Well, when you say we, do you mean you? Do you own that? And it's not just Gavin Newsom. It's a lot of people within the party. And by the way, if you're part of the party, the Democrat Party, and you're not calling out either the massive regulations or the toxicity of the party, if you're not calling it out, but you consider yourself like a normal or moderate Democrat, well, then you got to call that stuff out. I mean, Gavin Newsom is trying to call this stuff out, but it falls very tone deaf because he's been a big part of the problem. And so my comment to him would be, well, then fix it. Fix California. And by the way, in case you don't know, I'm from California. And the California that I grew up, and I loved California, has become just as toxic as the Democrats themselves. This is from the California Globe, the one conservative voice in California. This is a headline. Governor Gavin Newsom, how to destroy California in less than 10 years. He helped create a housing shortage due to overregulation, raising the minimum wage to force a bunch of layoffs and a whole lot more. Details straight ahead. Time to check the roads on WTN. Very good. Your weather for today, 89 degrees, partly cloudy now, 46 degrees on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. So, Governor Gavin Newsom, very much in the headlines. The California Globe, again with the headline, How to Destroy California in Less Than 10 Years. One of the things that he did, he raised the minimum wage to force a whole bunch of layoffs. You folks remember that. They legalized drugs in California. They killed manufacturing because of climate policies in California. They limited energy production in California. They ordered all internal combustion cars to be banned by 2035. And they, of course, as y'all know, they destroyed the public education system by watering down disciplines like math and English. And instead, infusing woke policies that did nothing but teach hate and racism. That's what Gavin Newsom did. And so as much as he tries to run away from the toxicity of the Democrat Party, he's been a big part of the problem. Now, Mandis, why are you talking about Gavin Newsom? Why does he matter? He matters because he is one of the leaders of the Democrat Party. He has presidential aspirations. He is trying to do what Kamala Harris did, which is try and make himself look like a moderate. And I'm here to tell you, he is, in my opinion, failing miserably because just like Kamala Harris, you cannot run from your record. And so he is trying to sound like the voice of reason for the Democrats.
It's really been interesting, the reaction to the podcast. I mean, we had some controversial figures on, I'll acknowledge that, and Steve Bannon, Charlie Kirk, and some others. But you're right. I mean, this idea that we can't even have a conversation with the other side.
You have to. They won.
Thank you. That's it. Bottom line.
Well, I would say this. If I were Bill Maher, then I would ask him about the likes of Jasmine Crockett and the things that she says about Republicans. But here's the point. Well, Gavin Newsom, he might be talking a good game right now, he's just trying to position himself, obviously, for 2028.
Or the notion we just have to continue to talk to ourselves, or we're in the same damn echo chamber. These guys are crushing us. The Democratic brand is toxic right now. We had a high water mark 2 weeks ago, and that was a CNN poll at 29% favorability. It's dropped in the NBC poll down to 27%. It's one thing to make noise, but you also have to make sense. And I think with this podcast and having the opportunity to dialogue with people I disagree with, it's an opportunity to try to find common ground.
You know what's interesting? What's bizarre here and what is fascinating is that he's talking about, open dialogue, common ground, speaking to the other side. This is the same governor that signed a bill into law forcing social media companies to report hate speech and disinformation. Now, folks, you and I both know that to the Democrats, hate speech and disinformation is literally anything that they disagree with. I mean, if you were out there saying, the laptop is real, the laptop is real. Gavin Newsom, and by the way, we all knew that the laptop was not Russian disinformation. We all knew that the laptop was real. But under Gavin Newsom's regime, that would have been considered disinformation and hate speech. And so he's talking a good game about dialoguing, but he was one of the main instigators in shutting down conservatives who had opinions on COVID, who had opinions on politics, who had opinions on, things like where COVID actually came from, which was, as we all now know, a Chinese lab, which something conservatives always said. So now Gavin Newsom, because he is having these open dialogues with conservatives, you know that his polling is now cratering. One poll shows him, before the podcast, his numbers were at 52%. They are now at 47% and dropping. And I think part of what's going on is that Newsom is just not being honest about his past record. He's not being honest about being a radical progressive whose policies have helped kill the state of California. But you know what? As we wrap this up, one thing he is right about.
The Democratic brand is toxic right now.
That is the one thing that Gavin Newsom is right about. And the thing is, this isn't going to end anytime soon. The toxicity of the Democrats. I saw this, and this was interesting, and we're going to end on this. I saw a meme, Truth in Memes, right? Do you know that on TikTok, Donald Trump has 152 million views, apparently, on all the different videos and stuff that they've produced? The Democrats, they only have 38 million. Trump and the Republicans on TikTok, 152 million. The Democrats, 38 million. What does that tell you about where the Republicans and the Democrats are? But we have some issues going on in Florida and also in Wisconsin. We've got that story for you coming up and a whole lot more. It is Nashville's Morning News. At 6:30, Joan Jones is coming up with the news. Joan, what do you got?
We'll tell you where those 4 tornadoes touched down during Sunday's storms. And we'll take a look at what's coming up for us in the weather. Could be a pretty stormy week ahead. Those stories coming up at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.